It's a story that resonates with all Americans. Why does a farm kid from Iowa respond so well to a Tuskegee Airman? And the answer is because as a 10-year-old kid in school, had I told my teachers that my dream was to fly most of the significant bombers and fighters and transports of World War II, they would have said, you know, that's a really nice thought, Dougie. You just do real good in math and science and you'll be a farmer just like your daddy.
When we fly these aircraft, we take it very seriously, and we take not only the honor to be able to fly it very seriously, but operating the aircraft in a safe manner very seriously as well.
A group of average Americans must become a team of fighting men with wings.
If I heard an airplane go over, which was very rare, I was running out of school trying to get out to see it. April the 17th, 1946 is when I went into the military. Of course, the military forces were segregated in those days. The Tuskegee Airmen is basically started out to be sort of an experiment.
Believing in themselves, never giving up, and being ready to win. They did it, and they changed the world.
The bomb exploded right in front of us.
So the Lancaster really was developed as a bomb-carrying machine.
The most produced American military airplane in history.
It's just such a rewarding airplane to fly. You just want to get back in it each time.
On the way!
Doug Rosendahl is a colonel in the Commemorative Air Force and also its chairman. He plays a major role in the upkeep, fundraising and flight training of its many aircraft. A vastly experienced pilot in his own right, he's qualified in over 100 aircraft types, but is perhaps best known as the leader of the Red Tail Squadron. The compelling story of the Tuskegee Airmen is both their motivation and their mission, as the P-51 Mustang continues to fly in honour of those airmen.
Tuskegee Airmen are black pilots, mechanics and support people who, when our country declared war against Hitler, came forward and dispelled the biases and generalizations that because of the color of our skin we couldn't support our country in a technical area.
Well, the Mustang's an iconic airplane, and if you were to ask 100 pilots if you could fly one airplane in the world, 90 plus of them would tell you a Mustang. The C model is very unique. There's only a handful of them, left that fly in the world. There's a reason why they moved on to the D model. The D model is definitely more user-friendly, but there are also advantages to the C model. It's cleaner, it's lighter, and anytime you can make an airplane lighter, it's better. You sit down in the airplane. The D model, they raised it up a little bit so you could see better, but it for me anyway, it kind of removes you a little farther away from the airplane. When I get in an airplane, I typically put the seat down. I want to be in and part of the airplane. When you're in flight in this airplane, it's absolutely a part of you. I have a soft spot in my heart for this airplane.
The original Mustang prototype was designed and built in under 4 months by North American Aviation and was intended to be a high-altitude escort fighter.
The Mustang was essential for the survival of the long-range bomber program. It started life basically as the P-51A with the Allison engine, but the P-51B and the P-51C then came along with the Merlin engine.
The Merlin just fits the Mustang like putting a sock on, really. It's just putting your hand in a glove. Everything just falls into place. It's a tight installation. The cowls are a good fit around it. It's streamlined. It was similar to the Allison engine in as much as V12, the same shape. The mounting principle is different, so it had to be a whole new engine mount designed to put on the front of the firewall to accommodate the long Merlin. Packard won the contract to build Rolls-Royce engines under license. In effect, I think they were supplied with all the drawings and then they redrew the drawings. In effect, it's my belief that they actually tightened the tolerances on certain things so they could build engines on an assembly line.
The P-51C model became famous as the aircraft flown by the Tuskegee Airmen. They were a squadron of African-American fighter pilots who initially struggled to be recognized for their skill. Despite an apparent lack of support, they clearly longed to fight for their country. Through sheer hard work and determination, the Tuskegee pilots earned respect and the opportunity to prove themselves through the recognition afforded them by the First Lady, Eleanor Roosevelt. Her faith in them started the process of the integration into frontline service of this now famous Tuskegee Squadron. The CAF have also had challenges to overcome.
And on Memorial Day weekend of 2004, we were at our Minnesota Wing show in Red Wing, Minnesota, and Don was flying the airplane, I was flying a B-25. He came on the radio and said that he was losing the engine. I was landing the B-25, and I told him I'd run off in the grass or whatever he needed, but he never answered. The airplane went down about a half a mile from the airport, impacted a tree, and took the wing off. The fuselage fell over and got involved in some other vegetation, and Don survived, but he passed away that night. So here we are with no leader and a wrecked airplane, and really kind of at a loss, and we all huddled around the next day and we said, you know, Don would want this airplane to fly. We had no idea how we were going to do it or how we were going to raise the money or how we were going to restore it, but we had a press conference and said we're going to build the airplane and fly again. So we spent 5 years, we raised the money, restored the airplane, and in 2009 it flew again. You know, that was very emotional, and you had to work hard to separate the emotion from the job of going and flying the airplane.
Don Heinz, the pilot and Doug's former colleague, was as passionate about education as he was about aviation. The story of the Tuskegee Airmen represented both passions equally. It was his vision to cement their place in history by shining a modern-day spotlight on their achievements. Following his untimely death, his colleagues, Doug in particular, were determined to continue this important mission.
Don had this vision that it would be more than just a really cool airplane that was out flying around in the colors of the Tuskegee Airmen. He wanted to turn it into an educational program that would be inspiring to young people and cause them to understand and come to realize the story of the Tuskegee Airmen. We started flying in 2001 and 2002, 2003. And as that process was wrapping up, we started focusing on what we were going to do to continue Don's vision of an educational, inspirational story that would really make this airplane relevant and impactful. And so we set out to try to figure out a way to create an experience like that. You know, the Flight Instructor Handbook says that the definition of learning is a change of behavior as a result of experience. Creating an immersive exhibit with a panoramic screen in a mobile platform had never been done before. 4 months later at Oshkosh, we premiered our exhibit. And it's been on the road for 5 years, incredibly impactful. We've exposed over 200,000, what I like to say is children of all ages, to the story of the Tuskegee Airmen in an experiential way.
My group was the ones that painted the tails of those planes red, which was known as the red tails, so that the enemy, the Nazis, was recognize the Tuskegee Airmen called red tails.
They didn't even know who we were at first, and then they started calling us the Red Tail Angels because we wouldn't leave them. I can remember being on missions. We would come back. We were withdrawing the bombers out, and you would hear stragglers up there screaming, fighter protection, fighter protection. I got one engine out, another engine is acting up, and the flight leader would say, hey, anybody in the flight, how is your fuel level? 3 or 4 of you got some additional fuel, go back and find that guy. And we turn around, go back, find them, and bring them home. And that was not uncommon. We did that on many, many times. And this is where we got the names, you know, the Red Tail Angels, because we stuck with them.
You know, it's the speed and the noise, the excitement that draws people in. And then we can take this incredible story of the Tuskegee Airmen and what they did and use that as an example to inspire young people to reach beyond their grasp or to draw a target on the wall of something that they really aspire to or want to do and show them a path to success.
Just as Don's vision was coming to life, thanks to the immersive experience trailer, and large numbers of people were reliving and celebrating the Mustang story, the CAF Red Tail's P-51 met with further misfortune.
So my phone rings, I answer it. Hey, Shep, what's happening? He says, Doug, I crashed the airplane. I mean, it's kind of funny listening now, but it obviously wasn't funny at the time. I said, what do you mean? What airplane? He said, I crashed the Red Tail. I landed with the gear up. You what? I landed with the gear up. And in the background, I hear these sirens. And I said, where are you at? He said, I'm sitting in the airplane. And you crashed it? He said, yes. And those are sirens coming? He said, yes. I said, get out of the airplane. You know, to err is human, and he made an error. But I think what's really amazing in Shep's case was from the get-go, he owned it.
When we fly these aircraft, we take it very seriously, and we take not only the honor to be able to fly it very seriously, but operating the aircraft in a safe manner very seriously as well. And that day is one of those days that, you know, we say often your bucket was full or you had a helmet fire, as we say in the pilot world. And operating that aircraft that day is just one simple check that takes 22 seconds to actuate had gone wrong, and I paid the price for it. You know, for lack of better terms, it was close to being a shock. I was in utter disbelief. You go through that self-defecation, beating yourself up over it, and the tug of dealing with an emergency issue. You know, you have to rely on your training and stuff. So I recognize that we're in an emergency situation. Not only do you have to recognize that, I still have a job to do to save the aircraft as best I can and make sure I save life, limb, and property as well. And you're trying to find some way to not justify, but trying to make rationale of what happened, that, hey, I'm happy to be here, I can recover from this, and what have you, that rise above sort of stick-to-itiveness. I had a choice to make. I could have done something differently, and it's the other guy's issue, the other guy's problem. And I had to say, you know, I'm the squadron leader of the Red Tail Squadron. I'm trying to make come to life as far as the tenets and the principles of the Airmen: rise above, use your brain, never quit, and expect to win. So I have to aim high and make sure that I personally walk the talk on that. And that was an interesting time for me because I took, you know, full responsibility for what happened. That was one of the real cleansing moments as far as knowing what it's like to be in another person's shoes that has to make a tough decision. And I felt, you know, not justified, but at least a sense of peace that, okay, let's get back to it and let's get this bird back in the air and let's own this and move forward.
Look to the example of the Tuskegee Airmen. Overcome adversity and obstacles and rise above adversity and move forward. And sadly, we've done this before, and we know how to do it. Other folks in the industry came to our aid and have traveled with our exhibit. Our organization is still out there educating and inspiring young people about the Tuskegee Airmen, and that's what we do, and that's why we do it.
It was a world war, and the P-51 would be required everywhere. This was the ETO, the European Theatre of Operations, and everywhere they wanted Mustangs. The factories were producing them as fast as they possibly could and then leaving it for the senior commanders to sort out the allocation. And the Tuskegee Airmen had started off with P-40s, P-47Ds, and then finally got their P-51 Mustangs and marked them characteristically with their red tails. It is sad to think that America, through its policy of discrimination there, denied itself the full potential of a resource that it had, who could have done so much more had they not been denied the opportunities by the system they lived in.
The really segregation in the service came from a 1925 War College study. They felt that the Negro was a subspecies of the human race and not qualified to do anything technical. Because of physical qualification, I could dig ditches, build roads, drive trucks, cook food, but any service work. But anything technical, no way. They forwarded this study to the War Department saying, recommending it become part of mobilization policy. War Department bought that. So war was declared against Hitler in Europe and the war buildup began. Blacks were excluded in any technical aspect of the activity.
It was, in a way, one of those things. It was a situation that I grew up under, and that was prevalent in the United States at the time. And my idea about it, I was thankful that I had the opportunity to fly and to learn how to fly and to be taught how to fly there. And thankful that I could go ahead and demonstrate my ability and say, well, my ability to the next guy is just the same as yours, you know. And you can fly an airplane, I can fly an airplane too. When I first got overseas, they handed me a hand-me-down P-51C. So that was my first aircraft. And one of the guys who was overseas, who was going back home, they took the plane and turned it over to me. But I flew that C for quite a few missions and got quite used to it. Flying, the C had sort of restricted visibility because of the way the canopy was configured. The D had a bubble canopy, so I had visibility all around. So those two features I really enjoyed about it. Other than that, I couldn't tell much difference between the handling of the two aeroplanes.
The success of the P-51C and D models meant they could now aspire to fulfill their original intended role as high-altitude, long-range fighter escorts protecting the bombers. However, they also needed a new practical solution to extend their range.
To give the Mustang the range that it needed, you had to carry fuel. The internal tanks would only have a limited capacity. So the idea was conceived of carrying additional fuel in drop tanks. And it was vital that these drop tanks were supplied as rapidly as possible. And two British companies, Spicer's and Bowaters, the girls there worked long, hard hours to get the initial papier-mâché tanks supplied to the Mustang bases as quickly as possible before American supplies then came on stream. And in combat, you didn't go into a dogfight carrying your drop tanks. Quite literally, you dropped them. As soon as you were engaged, jettison the drop tanks, and then you had a fully functioning P-51C fighter.
The Mustangs, far in the distance, sweep the surrounding sky as they come in. Next to the belly or wing tank, which doubled the fighter range, the most important feature of long-range fighter escort was the relay system. Because of differences in bomber and fighter speeds and the need of much weaving, fighters used up their time and distance almost twice as fast as the bombers. Thus, the same group of fighters could remain with the bombers only 25 to 40 minutes out of a 6 or 8 hour mission, going and coming.